Ansley has always loved space, ever since she was a little girl. It was her 10th birthday, and the sprightly little Ansley clambered down the stairs, her blue eyes scanning the room for surprises as she twirled one of her brown curls around her finger. Her face was freckled, and her cheeks were round and rosy, all normal for a girl of her age. There was something that seemed rather unusual about Ansley, however. The birthmark on the left side of her face. A patch of brown that covered the space surrounding her eye. Growing up, Ansley had endured many tormenting comments and judging looks. She had grown used to being different from everyone else, and their criticisms did not seem to bother her any longer. "Ah, there you are, my girl," Ansley's grandfather yelled as she ran towards him. "You know, Ansley, you're one of the strongest people I know. You're going to do great things one day." Ansley smiled as she yelled gleefully, "I'm going to be an astronaut when I grow up." Her grandfather laughed, pulling her into the tightest of hugs and squeezing her cheek with his hand. And, of course, Ansley did go on to achieve her dream of becoming an astronaut. Her resilience helped her through. She never let anything stand in her way. 8 years later, on her 18th birthday, the day came for Ansley's hard work to finally pay off. Today was the day she would officially be recognized as an astronaut. She was ready to head out on any mission thrown her way. As she looked out over the crowd of people, tears started to well in the corners of her eyes. Her mother and father sat amongst the crowd, smiling and waving jovially. Next to them, there was an empty seat. Upon it sat a sign that read, "Reserved, Philip Arnold's." "I miss you, Granddad," Ansley whispered as she started to walk towards the stage. The crowd started to cheer as she and her fellow graduating astronauts lined up, ready to receive their diplomas. There were 4 of them in total. The crowd silenced as Dr. Davis, their teacher and renowned astrophysicist, walked onto the stage and stood behind the stand.
"Today, we welcome 4 young astronauts to our team,"
he said. His voice was warm and slightly hoarse, as if he was trying not to cry.
"Ansley, Matthew, Anthony, and Kai. They have been wonderful students, and I am so proud of them all for making it to this point. Ansley, in particular, for being so resilient. We truly need more women like her pursuing science."
Kai started to scowl. He had always hated how fond Dr. Davis was of Ansley. To hear her get a special mention like this, it just made his blood boil. A commotion broke out at the back of the hall as the doors swung open. A soldier dressed in camo marched in, and a look of purpose crossed his face as he called out, "Dr. Davis, your team is needed and it's urgent."
"Well, it looks like this ceremony may have to wait for a few moments."
Dr. Davis addressed the crowd, making quite a few of them chuckle. Of course, at the time, nobody knew of the danger that was coming. "Yes, so, what is so important that you had to interrupt the ceremony, Sergeant?" he questioned as he led his team in behind him. "I'm waiting." His tone was more threatening now, and the joy seemed to have dissipated. "It's a black hole, sir," the sergeant began to explain. "One that has never been recorded before. And it's dangerously close to Earth." "Well, where the hell did it come from? I've heard nothing of this before." "It just materialized," they said. "The matter must have collapsed very quickly to form it, and—" "Ansley, come here," Dr. Davis cut in. Ansley took a step forward. The other astronauts stayed put, now cowering behind her as she started to speak. "You'll require my help with this," she asked. "Yes. You're the best that I have. You must go alone. As you can expect, this will probably be dangerous, and we cannot risk sending everyone. Survey the black hole. Send reports of its size and conditions. I'm counting on you, Ansley." Just mere hours later, the rocket was ready for launch. Now strapped into the pilot's chair, Ansley was filled with feelings of anticipation, excitement, and dread all at the same time. She had been waiting so long for this moment, for her first launch, and she had never realized until now what dangers she'd signed herself up for. "I'm doing this for you, Granddad," she said as the countdown started. As she looked out now, across the infinite universe, she could not quite comprehend where she was. She had finally made it. She had achieved her dreams of being in space. It was beautiful. A spread of black dotted with sparkling stars, but it did not meet all of her expectations. As she stared into the abyss of black, she felt lonely. The black hole seemed to be eating away at this, consuming all matter that dared approach it. The spaceship was drifting closer and closer, as if it was being hypnotized and drawn in by its presence. "Control center to Ansley, over. You need to back away. You're getting too close. We've tried to steer you off path, but you may have to intervene manually." Ansley ignored the radio as her eyes stayed trained on the black hole, fixated, obsessed. She could not tear her view away. She felt this need to keep looking deeper. It certainly didn't seem like a black hole. That was when everything fell dark. The radio silenced, the noises of the ship seemed to stop, and Ansley felt different. "What is it?" She heard voices talking a few feet above her. "I think it's human." Ansley opened her eyes. The landscape all around her had changed. She was no longer in space, but instead, she was standing on solid ground. The world around her looked similar to Earth. Trees dotted the plain that reached off into the distance, the horizon distorted by the shadow of a small town. The colors here seemed off, though. Purple skies and gray plants dotted blue with little rounded flowers. She looked at the people that stood before her, a crowd of girls, all similar in appearance to herself, though there were a few differences. Even so, one key detail remained the same. Each of them had a small birthmark covering their left eye.